We are deeply honored to have with us Dr. Smita Hegde, Principal and Director of Research at CFAL Mangaluru, and a distinguished researcher and thought leader in biodiversity and sustainability. Now I request Ms. Anamika and Ms. Rimanka to escort Dr. Smita to the dais. To begin, I request Ms. Anamika to introduce our resource person to the gathering.
It is my honor to introduce our esteemed resource person, Dr. Smita Hegde. She is a renowned biologist and academic leader with more than 35 years of academic and research experience. At present, she serves as the Principal and Director of Research at the Center for Advanced Learning, Mangaluru. Dr. Hegde is a distinguished expert in sustainable development, pteridophytes, plant molecular biology, and environmental science. Over the years, she has guided 9 PhD scholars and 47 postgraduate students and has contributed significantly to the scientific knowledge through over 105 peer-reviewed publications, 5 books, and 40 book chapters. She is also a passionate environmentalist, a pioneer of Mangaluru city tree count. She now leads the Amara project, Pragritiya Pragati, a citizen-driven urban greening initiative aimed at enhancing biodiversity and sustainability. For her exemplary contribution, Dr. Hegde has been honored with several prestigious recognition, including the SSBIR Gold Medal in 2014, the Ananya Mitra Award in 2016 by the Karnataka Forest Department, the Best Teacher Award in 2021, and the Distinguished Researcher Award in 2022 by NITTE, deemed to be university. Truly, Dr. Smita Hegde represents academic excellence, research innovation, and environmental stewardship, and it is our privilege to have her with us today. Ma'am, on behalf of all of us present here, I extend you a warm welcome. I now request Dr. Prithvi to give a green welcome to Dr. Smita. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. A very good morning to one and all. I generally don't prefer to stand behind the podium because there's no podium designed for my height yet. Podiums are fine. Manufacture defect is here. All right. So when we talk about environment, we always think about ourselves in third person. But I would like Mr. Vijay said, unless we have an emotional connect, we will not learn. Unless amygdala in our brain is activated, we will not learn. So how do we go about connecting? Can you talk to me? Okay. What is your connect with nature? How do you connect yourself with nature? You can shout out. Through our existence, okay. Next. Does that mean others only connect to Airtel, Vodafone? They don't connect with nature? Do you connect with nature? How do you connect yourself to nature? Emotions? What kind of emotion drives you to nature? Very poor here. What here, Lavina? Hello, she's really 25 years I have taught here, and I know the vibrant students here. After I left, I think nobody has screwed them for talking. Come on, have expression. Unless you talk, You will not have a value unless you communicate. You will be ignored in a crowd. Please talk, speak out. Gardening. Okay, gardening, very good. Living itself, very good. What part of living? Eco-friendly, all right, very good. What else do you think your connect with nature is? Are you a consumer? The food that we consume, all right. So we have various thought processes how we connect with environment, how we connect with nature. But have you heard of the most powerful connotation to nature, that nature is our mother? How many of you agree that nature is our mother? Okay. Now can you tell me what is your connect with nature? Yeah? Nurturing, food. Now do you understand? Unless you have an emotional connect, it becomes meaningless to talk about environment. The minute I said mother is nature, did you feel a paradigm shift in your emotion, in your mind? You did. Everything that you think mother is about, you're extrapolating that emotion to nature, and nature ticks every bit of that list. It provides for you, takes care of you, and most important point we forget is that we are born of it and we will go back into it. We are born of it and we are going to go back into it. Now tell me, what's your connect with nature? We are nature. We are the environment. We cannot talk about nature and environment as a third party. It is us. So whenever we say, who created pollution? We the people. If you are able to say, constitution we made, we the people. Good things that happened in the environment, who made? We the people. When we say there is bad things happening to the environment, who is responsible? We the people. And who is going to resolve it for us? Any Avenger is going to come from outer space? Going to save us? Any cloaked person is going to come to save us? There's something wrong about the cartoons that we see as children. Whenever I have seen my child taking a look at the cartoon, my time no TV, we had role models in adults around us. Now we have role models in media, multimedia, everywhere. So, ordinary child doing something, some big trouble comes, one bad man comes, and then one laddu, I eat, chunk, I eat, and then I become a Superman, and then I bash the person around. Next, I open a can of spinach, and then I eat the spinach, and then I get superpowers, and then I will change the environment. Why is it that we are taught as children, subconsciously programmed to think that help comes from external? You have to have something, then only you become powerful. Can you think of designing a cartoon which will have power from within, and that doesn't come from any external factor? You know who that cartoon are? Each one of us. The power is within. We are cartoons. Caricatures, that's all that we are. We need to put life in it. Unless we put life in it, we will just remain caricatures. How do we put life in it? Only when we have emotional connect to our surroundings, to where my foot is on the ground, to what I'm touching, what I'm feeling. Beware of your surroundings rather than the messages that are coming on continuously on your mobile. this is where we connect to the environment, and then we realize we are a part of it, not owners of it. We don't own it. At the most, I can say this is the earth that I have borrowed from you, and you have borrowed it from the next generation. And when we borrow things, it is moral responsibility of ours to give it back in a better condition. I had a friend, okay, who would always borrow things. A pencil unta, a pen unta, book unta. Every day she would borrow things from me, and it would never come back. And then the books that I lent would come back in all with lot of years and tone and scribbled on it. Did you have any friends like that? Do you still count them as friends? Friends like this, who needs enemies, right? All right? What kind of irresponsible behavior is this in a relationship where I only take and take more without giving a thought of how to give back? Don't give more. Whatever you have taken, at least give that back in decent shape. So you would think my friend's behavior is irresponsible. Look at you again. Look at ourselves again. How much we take from the environment again, and again. Not only what we need, but we think we might need day after tomorrow also we grab. And how much have we thought of giving it back? Yake, they have too much. Okay? If I give you an ATM card and tell you that this is, by the way, I'm rich. I give you my ATM card and say, go spend. Any amount. Go spend. What do you think you will go and buy? What will you buy with my ATM card? Okay, ATM limit untu. Credit card. Okay, credit card. What do you think you will go and buy? An iPhone? Oh wow, yes. Oh, I'm granting it. Yeah. Khayalon mein beggar mat bano. Yeah. This inspiring story, I'm not a big fan of this family, but it's a very inspiring story for me. Where Dhirubhai Ambani, once when he was a young boy, comes home and his mother has nothing to feed him. And then this boy was very hungry during lunchtime, so he sits down and he takes his plate and then serves himself something and licks in the corner of the plate and pretends to eat. And then his father asks him, what are you eating? So he says, ganji, porridge. So his father gives him a tight slap and says, khayalon mein sochna hai to biryani kha. Why are you even eating ganji in your dreams? Why can't you dream big? So now I'm giving you my ATM card and telling you to dream big. Is that restrictive? What will you buy? They've never got an opportunity to binge, okay? Yeah. Are khayalon mein rich. What will you buy? Real estate, yeah. What is that? Sorry, can you tell loudly? I'm Defender. Car, okay, that's a model of the car. Sorry, I'm outdated. Defender, wow. All right, fantastic. You're going to buy property, you're going to buy automobiles, you're going to buy communications. All right? So unlimited. Why? Because you think I have a lot of balance. But the next statement I will tell you is, I have in my account 19,171 rupees. 19,171 rupees, and this you have to use for the next 100 years. What is your attitude? Big curry, madam. That's what we are. Mangalore city has 19,171 trees. That's the number of trees we have in Mangalore streets. So are you going to binge around and say, cut, build a building, cut, and do unlimited expenditure? Or will you think and say that we have only limited resources, how are we going to use it further? So anything when we count and put a number to, awakens a person to think, what is our resource? What is our resource? Call him. Hey guy, look at me with the beard. Next to the blue shirt. Look up, man. I'm talking to you. Hey guy, yes, I'm talking to you. Please stand up. Not you. Behind. Next to the blue shirt. Yes. Please stand up. Yes, please stand up. I'm talking to you. Please stand up. How many trees does Mangalore city have? Yeah, others can prompt him. Absolutely. Delighted. Please sit down. So we have 19,000 odd trees. All right? And can we think of development, broadening roads and cutting it? For next 100 years, Mangalore streets will not have adequate oxygen providing trees. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with more vehicles, more communication, more buildings, but no oxygen to breathe? Okay? Do me one more favor. Do me one more favor. Just hold your breath till I say breathe. Hold your breath. 1. Yeah, now you may breathe. If you think that you deserve that breath you take, plant a tree. It's because of them we are able to breathe so easily. If you do not want to plant a tree, do us a big favor, stop breathing. We are better off without you in the society. Do you understand? Do us a favor. If you think that you need that oxygen to breathe, you have to go net zero, plant a tree, and hopefully that will account for every carbon dioxide that you have emitted and every oxygen molecule that is getting into your body. You have earned it. Otherwise, you're living on borrowed time like that friend of mine who kept taking and taking and taking without giving anything back to me. And such relationships will not sustain. So let's take a look what this sustainable goal is about. Next. Yeah. So I'm sure these are parts of your lesson. You would have studied sustainable development goals. But in 1992, at Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, more than 178 countries come together and decide upon an agenda. Can you imagine how powerful this agenda is? Even in the small room of maybe 150 people, we cannot agree to listen to one lecture. We agree, we disagree, we have so many things happening. But imagine 178 countries with different languages, with different parts of the world, come together and agree upon an agenda. How powerful that agenda should be. So what is that agenda? Let's take a look. So they called it as the 8 Millennium Development Goals. This was called as MDGs till 2000. Subsequently, there was a division of Sustainable Development Goal in the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Welfare, and they set up this 17 developmental goals. So what are these 17 developmental goals? What do you want tomorrow's world to be? Any answers for this? What do you want tomorrow's world to be? You want to wake up, or you want your children to wake up in a world where there is no hunger, where there is no poverty, where there is gender equity, where there is good health. Agreed? Equal opportunities, quality education, isn't it? So do you think any country would disagree on these terms? So let's take a look what these goals are. Next slide, please. So the first one says no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equity or equality, and clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, which is the theme of this conference, and you have life below water, life on land. All this can be achieved not when we are at war with each other. We can achieve these goals and peace on earth only when there is justice and strong institutions. And this is where perhaps you come in. So no matter how many goals we are talking about, we cannot achieve it as individuals. We have to work in partnership for all the goals. Right? So these are the 17 sustainable goals, and by 2030, we are expected to follow this to make a better world to live in. We can argue saying that, no poverty, can't think of. But did you make an attempt? Yes, you can. So human well-being is a constant effort, and we humans are work under progress constantly. Even on deathbed, we are learning how to die. Learning, improvement is a constant work, and work on ourselves is very, very important, and we will begin working on these goals. Next slide, please. But this goal is generally set up from up to down or down to up approach. So when my son finished his 10th standard, I asked him, "In Martiya, what do you want to study further?" The first question he asked me in return, can you guess? I'm sure you all will ask. What job do you want to do if he asks? Which one gives more paisa? Right? Same question you would have got in your mind. What do you want to do in future? Anything that gives you more money? First thought. Yeah, let's be honest to ourselves. One which gives us more money. So when we think as humans, actually we are thinking from top to bottom approach. But society doesn't work like that. Nature doesn't work like that. Unless you have good food because of clean earth, quality water which determines our health, clean water sanitation, and what we are doing to protect the environment, we are not going to have stable societies. If you want to have a healthy society, you need to have healthy environment. Why? Because I told you, Mother Nature. If the water outside is polluted, so is my blood. If the air outside is polluted, so are my lungs. Why? I am no different. I am a part of the environment. Any change, any dump I do that, where does it come back? It comes back to me. It comes back to me. All right? We are a process of this cyclic chain, and unless we have our biosphere clear, we cannot have no poverty, sustainable, any of these society goals will not be achieved if we do not have drinking water, if we do not have clean air to breathe. Next, if the society is strong, then only you have the economy. And all that will achieve in partnership. No country will partner with us if we do not have these resources clean. No partnership will work well if our societies are not at peace with each other. No country will partner with us if we are not economically sound. But to be economically sound, just building castles in the air is not going to work. It has to be placed on biosphere, and that is when we say it is sustainable. So when we talk about sustainable development goals, these are the 17 parameters that we are talking about. So okay, all this is fine. What's in it for me? Yankadane. What's in it for me? This is the question we ask. All right? So United Nations last year had this theme, restoring lands, combating desertification and building drought resilience. And I was thinking, why they are talking about drought resilience? Drought may be in Rajasthan, drought may be in this country and that country, but India, green. Supalam, Supalam, Malaya Jashitalam, Sasya Shamala, Mataram. Right? We think we are a beautiful country. We think. Let's take a look what's happening in reality. So it is said that land degradation is so rapidly occurring that the fertility of our soil is coming down because of the pollution that we have made. And desert is not only lack of water, lack of nutrients. So if we do not have good food to eat, what will we think about a good society? What we eat comes from the soil. And Mother Earth is such a wonderful system. You give it good fertilizers and you give it good condition, it will give you good yield. But if you give it heavy metals, that also it will magnify and give it back to you. Whatever we give, it magnifies and gives back to us. And this is what we are losing 30% of the land under desertification. Here I want to tell a story about, I had gone for one such conference where there were 1,500 kids. And one boy, 14-year-old boy, raises his hand and says he wants to say something. I said, okay, the lecture was on water conservation. He comes up in Hindi. He says, Madam ji, मैं राजस्थान से हूँ और मैंने मैंगलोर के लोगों के जितने बेवकूफ लोग कहीं में नहीं देखे. He dares to say this, single boy, 14, 15-year-old, speaking to over 1,500 Mangaloreans. And then I asked him, why are you saying like this? It's not true. Then he said, मेरे गांव में साल भर में 2 दिन बारिश आती है, 2 दिन बारिश आती है और हमको पानी के वांदे नहीं है. मैंगलोर में साल भर में 2 महीने बारिश नहीं आती है एंड मई महीने में हॉस्टल क्लोज करते हैं, पानी नहीं है. डू यू अंडरस्टैंड? We are in a place where it pours from the heavens. But this is the very place that is having water shortage in the month of May, April, May. What are we doing? Are we restoring our resources? Are we taking care of our resources? Or are we being bewkoof, as the boy rightly told us? We do not talk about water harvesting. We do not talk about conservative buildings or sustainable buildings. And we say government is not giving water, this is not giving the river. We are poured with blessings. Bewkoof zarur hai hum log. Next slide. So let's take a look. Next slide, please. Yeah. So I don't have a pointer, but you can see this is Mangalore, right? This is Mangalore, and it is coming under mildly dry. It's shocking for us to know that India has 718 districts, of which 500 of them have been categorized under extremely dry, severely dry, moderately dry, and mildly dry. And Mangalore is coming under this category. Are we aware of it? No. Why? Bewkoof. Complacent in our warm chairs. Somebody else will come and do. Some Avenger, Superman will come and do. I don't have to do anything. Get up from my chair. Are we talking about climate advocacy? Next slide, please. So in this effort, one fine day, we decided, let's just check out what's the tree count of Mangalore. Why we started walking and doing this counting, I have no idea. Just curiosity that Mangalore is getting hotter and hotter and hotter day by day. Trees are disappearing. And one student told me, ma'am, easy ma'am, Dalajji, you start. We'll count. At the end of the day, you have to give us good lunch and breakfast. That's the deal. Said, okay. We started counting every area, measured the girth, the height, noted down the location, identified the species. Next slide. And so these with photographs, latitude, longitude, scientific name, common name, height, girth, diameter, what kind of pavement it has, what is the total biomass, what is the carbon content, what is this carbon sequestration. In addition, we also calculated the biodiversity index. So this was how we did the data, and using this, we found out what is the building footprint, land surface temperature, etc. using architecture department's help. Next slide, please. And this is our finding. Mangalore is having 132.45 square kilometers, and the projected population is 6,93,037. Do you think one person, one tree at least we have? I told you 19. When I started, I thought we will find ಒಬ್ಬನಿಗೆ ಒಂದು ಮರ ಇರಲೇಬೇಕು ಮಂಗಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ, green. So going by this logic, if you think you are being responsible inhabitant of this earth or globe, how many trees do you need to plant before you kick the bucket? Sorry, you know, I kick the bucket and go. How many trees do you think I need to plant? 6 to 7 trees. 5 trees till you are at the age of 50. With every 5 years is a bonus for you. Plant 1 tree. Then I am accounting for only the carbon dioxide that I am exhaling. What about the automobile that I am using? What about the fuel that I am using? What about the consumer products that I am using? It comes to 400 trees per person. And India's average is 24. Where is 400 and where is 24? So are we negative in balance? Way back. When was the right time to begin planting trees? Yesterday. Maybe day before yesterday. We have already missed the bus. We have already missed the bus. But are you willing to do something about it? Next slide, please. So when we did this study, it was very enlightening for me and quite shocking for me to see that this area which is circled here is Bandar area. How many from Mangalore? A good number. Yeah. So you can recognize Bandar area. That is, this is natural Bandar, Tannir Bavi, and that is the artificial harbor. So these are the two areas where the temperature, if you can read, in 2014 was 42.31 degrees. Can you read that? 42.13 in 2014. And take a look here. In 2022, the temperature was 47 degrees. So the land surface temperature in the past 10 years has gone up by 4.72 degrees Celsius. So what is happening? Temperature jasti aitu kadime aitu. What is the problem? What do you think is our body temperature? Difficult. Madam bullying students, harassing them with asking questions. Don't call her again, okay? Yeah, she gets to this student. What is your body temperature? Monday becha you say, no? How much temperature rise will happen there that time? Okay. When you have temperature, have you heard your mother say or your elder in the house say, 99 degrees temperature untu? At least that you have heard. Okay, so from 98.7, if it goes up to 99.3, 0.4 degrees, then you don't want to come out of the bed sheet. Jara untu. 100 gone, ICU. 100 for on the way out. 0.02 degrees, 3 degrees is making havoc on our body. And I'm talking about a 4-degree rise in the temperature of the city. Shouldn't we be concerned? For whom? We will evacuate this earth and go. I'm in the waiting list much before you. I'll go. I've messed up enough, I'll go. Who are the stakeholders? Your generation. If you do not put your foot down and say that we need a greener Mangalore or a greener city to live in, who else is going to do it? You have to put it in print. One of my students, Ashwini, she went around, she made a group of people, went around to all political offices in Mangalore, all political bodies, and went and told, Nimma manifestodalli green ilde idre ನಾವು ನಿಮಗೆ vote ಹಾಕೋದಿಲ್ಲ. Unless you have green in your manifesto, we are not going to vote for you. This is the kind of statement my students have done to all political bodies. At least making the policy makers to think that citizens are demanding that we have a greener place to live in. Right? Yeah. Next slide. So this is 19,171 trees. How much carbon we sequestered? What is the average green density? And the total green cover. Please take a look. Mangalore is still green because of the 38.12% greenery in private land. But the rate at which these old antique houses are disappearing and apartments are coming up, by the time you reach my age, Mangalore will be a concrete jungle. All this private land is going to go. And till date, biotechnology, we have done a lot of things. I have cloned trees in test tubes. Yeah, Father Leo taught me to do that. But till date, I cannot make a 20-year-old tree overnight. I cannot make ready-made big trees and put them in the street overnight. We have to sow it now so that our future is better. So Mangalore's average green cover is 6.2418 in this, and the average temperature in every ward has gone up by 0.42. Next slide, please. So this is how in New York City, the New York entire city is mapped. Every tree there is mapped. Do you think this can happen only in New York? Do you think this can happen in Mangalore? Who has to do? We, the people, right? So I have given you a head start. Next slide, please. Every ward in Mangalore is mapped. By the way, you know where I started this entire process? Aloysius College campus. The first campus that I mapped was Aloysius College campus. Every tree on the campus was mapped, and I had 40 student volunteers like you who would come and help me to do this, and we drew up a document, and I think with that Aloysius got 3rd rank in some climate environment, in national level. It was a very unique feature, and that was done 10 years back. 2013 I have done this. Hey, no need clap, wait, I'll tell you more things to clap, okay? Yeah, Aloysius College was greener, so I don't want to take a clap now. Yeah, so this is Mangalore, this is Falnir ward. Anybody living in Falnir? Oh, great. Take a look. In Falnir, can you read between these two lines? Last 10 years, 1 degree temperature rise has occurred. So Falnir has become hotter by 1 degree temperature. The number of trees are 317, 40 distinct species. This is the diversity and how much carbon it is fixing. And if you want to plant more trees in your ward, I'll tell you, mahogany trees are there, and then you have makaranga trees. Other than that, please plant something else. So we can make informed decisions for every ward. By the way, how many wards does Mangalore city have? Social scientists, wake up and tell me, how many wards does Mangalore city have? Too many questions. 60 wards. Mangalore has got 60 wards. Every ward we have walked by foot and we have mapped. So 50 wards we completed mapping. In this book we have 50 wards. So every dot signifies a tree, and we will tell you what is the population and what is its correlation to temperature. Next slide. So these are the 60 wards that I am talking about. Mangalore's 60 wards, starting from Panambur to Bengre. So these are the wards. This is the total number of tree counts. Which ward has how many trees? What is the index? What is the rise in temperature? And what is the fall in temperature? Anybody living in Derebel North? Kodialbail? Kambala? Kadri Kambala? Temperature has gone up by 2 degrees. Dongarkeri, 2.18 degrees. But if you're living in, say, South Alape, or you're living in Bajal or Tiruvel, these regions, the temperature has come down. Why? Because the so-called development has not yet reached there. Do you understand? So when we are talking about development, we are forgetting about the trees, and that inevitably is giving rise to increased temperature. So can we do something about it? Okay, why is the global warming occurring? If this were the Earth planet, sun energy comes, hits the surface, all wavelengths, and more than 90% of it goes back into space. Are you with me? Okay, sun energy coming like this, like waves, hitting the surface of the earth. 90% wants to go back. Can it go back? It can, provided the atmosphere is natural. But what we have done to the atmosphere, carbon emissions, the greenhouse gases, the mantle is so thick that the temperature hitting this layer, coming back again and again, making the globe warmer and warmer. So the answer is simple. How to reduce the temperature? Make this layer thinner, right? Make this layer thinner. Strip it of the carbon dioxide. Who can do it? Who can strip carbon dioxide and convert it into biomass? I'm not talking rocket science, trees. Whatever I'm telling you is not something new. Everybody knows it. But how much we are committed to make a change is the question that I need to ask. Everybody knows what is to be done. But are we doing it? We will not do it unless somebody makes a punishment. It should come from within. So when we talk about emotional intelligence, it is about exploring the spectra of emotions, which makes our personality. What is the spectra of emotion I'm talking about? Empathy, gratitude, forgiveness, friendship, love. All these are a spectrum of emotions. And unless we experience all of this, no matter how intelligent you are, it's not going to sustain. Right? So become emotionally intelligent people, connect to environment, and hopefully we will bring down this temperature. So these are the students who did this. All this work is done by students, and generally we say we don't have funds, we don't have money to do all this, etc. But Vijay will tell us, we are going to do, this is 130 kilometers now. From October 10th, we are going to do 830 kilometers, Mysore. Both of us, we have signed an MOU. We are going to count the trees of Mysore within 6 months. That's our promise. And do you know how much budget we have? How much money you think you will need to count entire Mysore trees? Zero. We don't have funding, zero funding. What do we have? Passion. What do we have? Motivation. What do we have? Student manpower. That's why I said I am rich. 400 volunteers have registered. How richer could I get? Can you put a value to those emotions? Can you put a value to their commitment and passion? That's richness. So what makes us teachers rich is the wealth of this youth power that we have. And with you, we can achieve many, many things. Like Vijay said, as a community, when you come together, we can achieve unsaid of things. So now with zero budget in hand, 830 kilometers, we are going to walk and we are going to map the trees of Mysore. And here we have, the oldest person in this who did the tree count for me is 81 years old. And the youngest maybe 14 years old. So from 14 to 81 years old people, they have joined us to do this count. And some of the places in Bandar and all, we couldn't go during the day. Night we have gone. Police have caught us and taken us. And traffic police have stopped us. People have come out of their houses and said, don't count these trees I planted. Don't touch mine. So we've had various experiences, but we could complete the count. Can you play this video? Here. I don't know if it comes. Click. All right, go to the next slide. Fine. It's okay. Go to the next slide. Yeah. So these are the 60 wards of Mangalore for those who wanted to, know better. Yeah. Next slide, please. What I counted in Aloysius campus, I have a publication on it. So we counted 140-year-old Aloysius campus and Shannon's index of 4.0. 169 different species are there on campus, and the tree density per hectare, which are the dominant species, what are the others which are fixing highest amount of carbon, we were able to tell. Do you know in Aloysius College there are 2 olive species, olive trees? You think olive trees are only in biblical times? Opposite the church, there are some olive trees. Alvana, every tree measured, every tree accounted for. So this is the paper that we published. Next slide, please. This is the diversity of your campus. Next slide. Dominant species. Next. Yeah, carbon calculations. Next slide. How many in different sizes? So this is the publication dedicated to St. Aloysius College. Next. Next. Coming to Amara. Counted, done, dusted. Then what happens? You think somebody will clap? No, got a letter from City Corporation. You counted this much. Can you also suggest how to do improvement? So this is what I tell my students also. Unless you have a suggestion to make, don't open your mouth about the problem. Problem everybody knows. But what is the solution? So when we were having discussion, Vijay Moraz motivated me to say that, ma'am, let's not write a letter in reply, but let's work and show them how it is possible. So we have started this Amara, Mara illade Amaravagirlik agudilla, plant a tree, adopt a tree. So we launched this on 21st April, because 22nd April was the World Environment Day. Somebody asked me a question. It was easy for me to remember, because that was the day we wanted to launch this program. And by 30th, people adopted various wards, and we identified where the tree planting can be done. Aloysius College NSS students helped me to do this. Your college, some of you did come and help this. Arjun, Mr. Arjun helped us with this. So next slide. Yeah, so our aim is to make Mangalore cooler and greener by 2040. Why do you think this cooler we are talking about? What does a cooler do? Breeze comes and we are putting some ice or water, vapor comes and the breeze comes, you feel cool, right? That's a cooler. Plants give out water vapor due to transpiration, and when breeze comes, it's a cooler. So plants are natural coolers. So why can't we have Mangalore cooler by planting in more trees? And this is how Amara movement started, and every year we are going to do the planting. And this year, we have succeeded in doing it. The entire data of whatever was collected is now handed over to the city corporation, next slide, where you have some 19,872 trees. You can see them on the Mangalore map, and this is there in Amara Karnataka Smart City dashboard. So in the Smart City project, they have taken up our data, and this is how people you can adopt. You can go to this website and register and adopt. So the Amara team is having Vijay Moraz, me, Ashwini, my student I told who went to all the political places, Jeet Milan Rosh, you may be familiar, Kishore Attavar, he's a social scientist, Devraj Fernandez, he's in Rotary, then Dr. Rashmi is a taxonomist, Shantagowda is one of our major tree counters, and Chaitra. So this is the team Amara. Next slide. And what did we do this year again? Under Amara, we went to NSS, NCC, Rotary, Lions, every other citizen club, Aloysius College also, and we took these students and we did planting. So to this 19,000, we have added this year 11,600 odd trees. So from 19, we are able to get 11. So in future, and plus, Mangalore has one very unique advantage which other cities don't have. You know what? We have a coastline. We can plant mangroves. We don't need only land to plant trees. We have the coastline. So 40,000 mangroves were also planted under Amara. So under Amara, we have now 50,000 trees planted. And this is the geographic representation of diversity of trees. The biodiversity index has gone up to 4.41. Next slide, please. And these are the volunteers from your college. Do you recognize any of them? Sannidhi, she gave up her vacation and sat with us, coming 5:30 in the morning. It was raining, pouring heavily. All of us become waterproof at one point of time. And rain holidays were declared. During those rain holidays, we were counting the trees on the street. So Sannidhi, thank you. And Bhagavati, Kripa, then you have Dharmi Sethi, Srujana, Anchan, and Judith, Esther. These are the members of St. Aloysius College who helped us to do this Amara project. Next slide. And CFAL itself, every child on campus planted one tree. I'd be very delighted if Aloysius College can join us. Each one of you, one tree for your own footprint, if you can plant. The next question you will ask me is, Jaga elli untu? Jaga elli untu? When we talk about development, we have place for road, we have place for gutter, we have place for electric wires, but we don't have place for trees. So jaga alli alla, jaga illi matte illi illa. Planning, when we plan, we do not accommodate trees in our plan at all. Can we do that? So every child in CFAL has a tree now, and they'll be issued a certificate from the city corporation that they have participated in this program. So tomorrow you go and apply somewhere in one MNC and say that this is my qualification, first rank holder, first top. I will look at it and say, okay, all this is for you. What's in it for society? How much can you give back? If I'm going to give you a job and you're going to get richer and richer, it doesn't serve the purpose of employment. How much can you give back to the society? You can say, I took part in this, that. But if you have taken part in a movement, which has a magnitude of changing the face of a city, that certificate will have a big value. So we are issuing these certificates if you take part in our program. Next slide. And this year, we have planted these many trees in Mangalore. Next slide. Previous one, please. 11,628 trees were planted this year. So we have added to the 19,000, these many number. But trust me, those 19,000, many of them have gone. Kadri Park, that road, Agalikarana, you have so many trees that have gone. Next slide. So this was last year's, and the red is the change that we have made. So every year we are going to count and we are going to quantify and say how much difference Amara can make for Mangalore, and this is the project that we are talking about. You're welcome to participate in it. Next slide. For all this, I have a great inspiration in Father Leo D'Souza, and with Father Leo D'Souza, I have done a whole lot of projects, and he has guided the way I think and the way I work. And one such project was in Aloysius. 165 students like you. We went to do a study in this place near MRPL, where the expansion is going to occur. So companies, when they are doing expansion, they have to do it only in barren land. So it was declared that these places are barren, but our students, 168 of them, went and did a survey of the place for butterflies, for food crops, for soil, for water, etc. And we published 17 papers on it, and that 17 papers are evidence now in High Court of Karnataka that this place is not barren. Do you understand how, as citizens, you can contribute to conservation is by evidencing, talking about it and saying this land is not barren, don't take up here, not going to work. Doing Jai Jai is not the only way out. Develop evidence, do a study and say this is fertile land, this much is the produce, this much is the people dependent on agriculture, and that evidence we were able to put forward, and all this was done by BSc students, undergrads, as their BSc project. And their project work before they did and after they did, I did a survey and I wrote a paper, Building Research Competence in Undergraduate Students. And this particular work was presented in Teachers Science Congress in Gujarat. Out of 950 participants, I was one of the first prize winners because of the work that was done by undergraduate students. So what students can do for conservation, that's what Father Leo taught me. Next slide. This is the team that works with me on the streets of Mangalore. So I read somewhere, enjoy your work and life becomes a big paid holiday. So all the best for all your future endeavors, and any questions we are willing to take. Am I on time?
Thank you, Dr. Smita, for sharing such a wealth of knowledge with us. Your insights have truly enriched our understanding of the interconnectedness between ecology, governance, and human responsibility.
We now open the floor for a question and answer session. I encourage participants to actively engage, raise queries, and share reflections with our esteemed resource persons, Dr. Smita Hegde and Mr. Vijay Morris. This is your opportunity to interact directly and clarify your perspectives.
Any questions are welcome. 1991, October 1st, was my first lecture in Aloysius College. And the first question that I got, "Ma'am, are you married?" After that, I learned to reframe my question. Do you have any queries or questions with respect to the talk that I gave you today? But now I am in a comfortable position to answer the question, are you married too? So you can ask any question under the sun. Thank you. Would you like to join Amara?
Good afternoon, ma'am. I just wanted to ask you about one thing that's been going on my mind right now. Because yesterday I went out with my family and my dad saw a new building getting constructed near the TMA Pi Hall. And later on, when we went on the other route, we saw another building getting constructed. So that's not the point. My point is, when we see so many buildings are getting constructed recently, and that Bijay area has been taken, I think, by one Rohan Corporators and many other different builders. So my question is, how can they contribute to this? Because they keep constructing buildings, and I asked this to my dad, like, why do they keep constructing buildings? Do people actually buy so many apartments? And he just goes like, maybe yes, from abroad people do the bookings. But doesn't it mean that they are cutting down so many trees and they are constantly constructing new buildings and creating havoc in the city? I just wanted to ask you that, sorry.
Yeah, thank you for the thought-provoking question. I'm sure these are the thoughts that are going on in many of our minds as well. Unfortunately, when we talk about development, it talks about making more houses, providing more supermarkets, access, digital, smart. These are the words that are associated. But unless we the citizens, if I'm going to buy a house in one particular place where the temperature has gone up by 2 degrees, it will be a loss investment for me. Correct? So is it possible for consumers to set their goals and say that I will buy provided these are the tick lists? And it is happening. It is happening. When there is abundance of any product, the choices are many. People will choose wisely. Nobody would want to live in the heart of a city with all this traffic and heat and other things. So the consumer-driven market is one. As consumers, we can refuse. That is one. Second is to implore upon these builders to have policies which are at least 1:1 proportion. If 5 people are living in a house, at least 5 trees they should accommodate for. 1:1. Not possible. Jaga elli untu. Then comes putting taxes. Would you like to speak upon that? Okay. If I'm having a house and I'm having trees, and my neighbor having a house but doesn't have trees, what is the difference between the taxes we pay? If it is the same, then why will I invest more? Ultimately, if it boils down to money, people with greener houses, people who account for their green footprint, if we are able to vary the rate of taxation for different people, maybe it is going to work. And it's coming. It's coming. Such form of taxation is going to come. Why? Because as India as a country, if they want to set up Delhi Metro, they have to account for that much green belt to say that we are carbon neutral. We have to compensate. So World Bank will give us loan. If we are able to compensate our carbon footprint, then only they will give us loan to build this. Policies are coming in place. Okay? So in future, carbon is going to be currency. How much carbon I'm going to fix, that much currency I'm going to earn so that I can spend in development. So you're absolutely right in feeling that. And globally, this is the emotion. And very soon you will see a change in taxations to encourage people who harbor green and to discourage people who cut down green. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Adarsh. I'm from Trisha College. I'm pursuing BCom third year. My question is, like, we are a developing country, so most of majority of the population have lower incomes. So their main goal is to grow financially. So our main aim is economic progress. That's our main aim. So how can we combine economic progress and sustainability together? Because if we focus more on this, our economic progress might reduce by using sustainable practice. How can we combine both and develop?
Can I take that? Very good question. Please sit down. Yeah. So in my first slide, I said, no economy will sustain unless we ensure that our foundation of resources is adequate. So when we are telling that we want more housing, we want more cities, is that development? We have to redefine development. How can I put it? Okay, suppose I have 1 rupee currency in hand, 1 rupee ka kharcha, okay? And out of that 1 rupee, 50 paisa is blocked. Only 50 paisa I am able to recycle. Am I not being poorer? If I put that 50 paisa also into circulation, I may be having a more sustainable development. So when we talk about environment, all our resources together. I'll give you a simple example of thermocol. See, there are 2 forms of life on earth. One is carbon eater and sulfur eater. We are carbon eaters. We eat carbon, we emit carbon dioxide. Our body, carbohydrate, lipid, protein, everything carbon. 60% of our weight is carbon. We are carbon eaters. All right? So if we are not able to maintain this carbon balance in the atmosphere, we are at a loss. Imagine we invented thermocol. When we take this thermocol, that much carbon is fixed in a form that cannot come back into natural cycle. What is a pollutant? A pollutant is an agent made by man's activities which cannot be used in a cyclic fashion. That much carbon, gone. If at all it was in circulation, that much more plants we could grow, that much more cyclic, bioproductivity would be there. But when we are talking about development, making concrete, making all this, we are reducing our own resources and becoming poorer and poorer. So immediately, no, I am rich, that I understand. And like Father Principal told in the morning, scientists will talk. This pralaya will keep happening. 6th mass extinction we are going through. The globe has undergone such mass extinction 5 more times before us. We are already 20 years into the 6th mass extinction. We cannot prevent it. But can we ease it? Can we phase it? Globally speaking, pralaya aitu, done. But here it is my life I am talking about. I am struggling here. My children's future I am talking about. Their health that I am talking about. I am not talking billion years. Can we make it easier? Can we retard? Can we undo it? Because if man has the intelligence to destroy, man is the only one who can provide solution. No solution will come from outer space. We only have to think. So let us redefine our definition of development. Building haklike jaga untu. Why can't the development plan also have a green belt? Why putting tree is not development? Only making road is development. Why? It has gone into our mind. Development means concrete jungles. Why can't we include green in development? It's a mind block. We people are going through what is called as plant blindness. It's a disease. Yake, sasara. Trees, they'll grow. What is it? No longer it's going to grow unless we stop interfering with them. Do you understand? So I would like you to rethink the word development.
What you asked is a very interesting question, and you need to understand that this is the question that most of the country, the politicians, the businesses are pushing for, that we want development. We want to be getting people out of poverty. We want to get people out of literacy. We want to get them. At the same time, if when I was growing up, my parents had one thing, for example, I want my child to have a better life than they had. Which parent doesn't want it? I'd be surprised if you know one parent that answers me that I want to have a more miserable life for my children than I had. But you know what the flaw is? Every parent thinks that when they are more financially successful, that they have a better life. No parent teaches the children saying that you should have a better relationship than I and my wife had. No parent tells them that you should have a better friend circle than I had. No parent tells them that you should be more spiritually connected than I was. No parent tells them you should serve the community better than I did. What are we telling them? We're telling them a very stupid thing. When you're financially successful, you are very happy. Is it true? You're not. I'll give an example. She asked the question about Rohan Corporation building in Bijay. If you look at a house price and you want to have a 3-bedroom house in Bijay Corporation, it probably costs you 1 crore or plus. Yes. Imagine the interest on that house per year. Let's say you buy the house. And the interest on that house is 10 lakhs per year. That means 10 lakhs of your salary is going towards just paying the interest on the house, not the premium on the house. So you need to at least pay some premium. So the premium of 5 lakhs, so that in 20 years your house is paid. So you need to pay 15 lakhs. Now, to pay 15 lakhs on the house, after your income tax, you need to earn 20 lakhs. Isn't it? Now 20 lakhs of this money is only going to pay for the house. What about the car? What about the food expenses? What about the living expenses? What about your children's education? Oh, now you need a 30 lakh job in Mangalore to survive. You need the kind of work that you need to do to earn 30 lakhs a year. Is this called development? Is this sustainable? No. I said, no. I am going to go to Bangalore and buy. I'm going to earn much more in Bangalore, so I'm going to go to Bangalore. Now, the cost of a house in Bangalore is 3 crores. The interest rate per year is 30 lakhs. You need to pay 50 lakhs premium. So you need to earn 80 lakhs per year. You know what kind of a job you need to earn 80 lakhs per year? Would you have sleepless nights? Would you have a tension? What if I lose my job in the 5th year? Who will pay the premiums? Would you have peace of mind? Is this what you call development? Is this what the world is selling you? Yes. Buy the Gucci bag, buy the iPhone, buy the Defender car. Be in debt, then you're fully in control. If you want to have a good life, be debt free. When you have no debt to pay, your house is taken care of on no loan, you've got a car that you have on no loan, and you have a decent bank balance, then we are debt free, and that's when you have a peace of mind. But having a huge house, huge car, and you're working day and night, that is not called progress, and it's not at least progress in my mind.
Well said. Yeah, redefine the way you think. Any questions?
Hello, ma'am. Now that we know as normal citizens, we all think about development, even the government thinks about development and all that. Even right now in any society or any state, I'm from Bangalore and we are like fully developed with metro and all that. Now we have metro and it's convenient for us, to be very honest. I don't even think. So when it comes to building metros and having all that developments, do you think that government tend to avoid what the future consequences will happen if they cut down trees? They try to elude that part where they cut down trees, and that's not, they think it's fair because they're anyways trying to, like, you know, trying to cut down trees and construct metros and all that. So it's much convenient as a normal citizen. For me, it's convenient, and we don't think about the environment, what it's going to do in the future. So do you think that we lack statutory provisions when it comes to environment? Do you think that government still tend to avoid it because we are getting more money and it's not affecting right now, but it's going to affect long term? Do you think that government still tends to avoid it, and do you think we lack statutory provisions right now? And as a normal citizen, what would you do to think out of the box? Because cutting down trees, I'm going to punish you and all that is a normal thing. So as a normal citizen, what do you think that you can?
Please, may I know your name?
Cincy.
Cincy. Thank you so much for the wonderful questions, and thanks for coming down to Mangalore from Bangalore. And one statement that you made in the beginning, I don't agree with. You said, now Bangalore, we are fully developed.
Any state in that matter. I was just telling that I'm from Bangalore, and when I see Bangalore, it's more developed.
More
That
developed.
was never against any state. I'm just
No,
saying
no, no,
I'm
no.
from...
No, I was just, I love Bangalore, and I love the world, in fact. Okay, so it's not personal, but it was just curious Srini, for saying that this development, no, is never complete. It's man's greed. You have metro, then you'll have monorail, then you'll have something else. Then it's a constant thriving for better. But at what cost? If I'm in government, I will only see next 5 years. And at the end of 5 years, I want more votes, so that I will continue to be in 5 more years. So I think the statutes are in place, the policies are in place. But we people are so busy making our two ends meet or trying to reach that place. From home to office, from office to home. This task itself is so overpowering that we are not mindful of the development that we are thinking of long term, how we envisage our future. So I would definitely think it's time to redo the statutes. There are people who are rethinking, and there are people who are thinking of getting away from the entire carbon and getting into hydrogen alternatives. So when we are coming to a crossroad, we are seeking alternatives. But we can make a difference by being conscious about it and by making informed decisions at our own levels. Big problems have small solutions. Big dams can be broken down into small. Big needs can be broken down into smaller needs. So, I don't know, I'm getting into now a very spiritual mode, I guess. But minimalization of our needs itself, I think, is development. If you ask me what is development, my definition may be different. So, coming back to the point, are we going towards a sustainable development plan? It doesn't look like that. So it's time we rethink, and definitely there is a need for statutes to be followed. Thank you.
There is opportunity for one last question, then we'll wind up the question
Yeah.
and answer session.
Yeah, on that question, it's a very interesting question again as well. We want our cities to be developed, And there are models around the world of a very developed cities and that are actually green as well. You can take Singapore, for example. Is it more does it have more population than, you can say, does it have more population than Bangalore? Equal amount of population than Bangalore. Is it more greener than Bangalore? Yes. But most of the transportation that happens there is public transportation. But look at the transportation in Bangalore. It's all private transportation, all cars clogged up. I dread not enter the junction, Nalamangala junction at Bangalore, and I'm stuck. Even at middle of the night. We are not against development, and we're not like an activist. We are saying that when there is a model around the world of a better practice, when there's a better way to live, and it's known and it's documented and its proof is there, when the citizens of Singapore and citizens of many other countries in the world are happier living in a city that's more greener, why are we ignoring it? That's what we're against.
And also, can we make a difference? Yes, we are making. To Mangalore, we are making. Bangalore, up to Bangaloreans. But Mangalore, knowing that this is going to happen, we want a better developed Mangalore. So we've started this Amara. We think we can make the change. And believing in oneself is the first step. We will make a difference.
Check. Hi ma'am, my name is Joel. I'm faculty of Loyola College, Manvi. It's in Raichur district. So my question is, most of us were speaking about cities. So in villages or places like Raichur, most of them, they hold land and they are having enough, I don't know if they have enough. But what I saw was like they have enough, they did enough planting, most of them are farmers. But still that place is not developed. Like after planting lot, still that place is not developed. There is the idea of caste over there. So if such things are there, like idea of caste or such things are there, then what's the point in planting more trees? Still there are no development, not even a little bit development is not there. So what is the point, like what change are we talking about if we are just planting?
Yeah, if I were to understand your question, correct me if I am wrong. In rural India, where development is so-called development is less, backward, what is the point in planting trees in these areas? That is your question, right?
I mean, yes, but because it's not getting developed in other ways. Just planting trees, I don't know. When
Okay.
the idea of development again,
Yeah, I understand. So my entire presentation today was from the context of a urban development plan. So now we are shifting to rural development plans as well. So when we are talking about development in rural places, I think the basic necessity may be water, road, education, connectivity. Is this there in your city? Is this there in your town there?
not much, ma'am.
Yeah. So when you say not much, there is not much connectivity of roads?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if we were to point out and make a list like I'm trying to say, what would you think is a developed village? What do you think is a developed village? Work towards it. In that, do not neglect the resources that you already have. Are you able to understand?
Yes, ma'am.
So if I'm going to say that when I achieve these goals, better road is there, better network is there, maybe better schools are there, hospitals are there, then I would say this region is developed. If these are the criterias, work on them, but not at the cost of what is already existing. This is what we say, we do a first baseline study. When we do a baseline study, we know that this is the ecosystem this place has. And when you build it up further, the character of that place should not be lost. You should not try to mimic Bangalore in your village. You should make your village the most developed by retaining the resources there. That is development. So why do we always think development means cut down trees? Where? I'm not there saying plant. Conserve what is natural to that particular region and build around it. Be a part of the ecosystem. Each city has its own taste, its own culture, its own tradition, its own microflora, macroflora, birds, insects. Where are they going to live? Cohabit. Can you build a system where all of us can live together without driving them away? That should be the thought of development. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I understand, we want our villages to be developed. I see it. But let me ask you that question in a different way, right? See it from this perspective. Let's say you have this person, and I gave this person's house in Bangalore who's got a 3 crore house. Imagine this person is working very hard because he has to pay that mortgage on his house every month, insane amount of money. All he has to do is work 12 hours or 15 hours a day to make it happen. He's on the call in the nights. His children, the only place here in Bangalore that you can go out of Bangalore is the mall, because you cannot go to Kabban Park or this thing because the traffic is insane. The only people he doesn't even know is his neighbors in his own apartment, because their timings don't match and the life doesn't match. The only form of entertainment is your OTT channels. The air that you breathe is polluted, the traffic is polluted, the noise pollution's out there, and water is polluted. This is how you think that you're bringing up your children. And the only education that you're getting is consumerism. Now versus a person in the city, village, in Raichur village, he's leaving his children to go and play in the farms. He's giving him great air. He's giving him great water. He knows his community very well. The children are safe in that community. They can run to the neighbor's house, play with the neighbor's house. If I'm sick, somebody's taking care of me. Who is richer? That is the first part. The second part is, in our education system, when we try to educate our farmers, when I try to take our villages, we know we have given them the same physics, chemistry, math, biology, and the languages and education. We have not shown them how to bring value for their product. Today, if you go and see the price of milk today, price of milk here in Mangalore or Raichur is way cheaper than the price of milk in London or in New York. But the price of oil or the price of the iPhone is the same across the world, maybe more expensive in India. Why is our produce of our farmers and our skilled people from our villages cheaper than elsewhere on the planet? Why? Are you saying that the rices are not the same quality, or the grains that we grow in Raichur are not the same quality as one in abroad? Why? Why aren't you asking that question? If they were getting the fair price for their produce and they were able to market it well or make it, change it into a consumable product, would the villages be richer financially? Yes. If you take that same ghee that has been there and sold as organic somewhere in New York, the price is unthinkable. But the price that you get in Raichur is so low. Ask relevant questions. Don't bring Bangalore consumerism to this. You say, I want better price for the work that I do in the villages. And that is the prosperity that you want. At the living with the same air quality, liver water quality, and the community life that you have. Wouldn't you want it?
Yeah. I have a question here. These days we see that there are a lot of high-rise buildings, and in the name of beautification, a lot of fiberglasses are also used. I feel from safety point of view also it is not desirable, and at the same time even from climate point of view also. Now, when the city corporation grants permission for these commercial buildings, what could be done? Because sir was talking about models. So I had heard that in countries like Germany and all, when high-raised buildings have to be constructed, it cannot be constructed within the city limits. It has to be in the outskirts. But when we come to India, I think so all these rules are not followed. So I think so, what could be done related to this?
So, like I said earlier, the government has enough models like in Germany, like Singapore or Tokyo, on what has good practices where prosperity can come, cities can prosper, and then there is greenery as well. How many of us, like, you are aware about it? How many of us are pushing for it? If we stay quiet about it, is change going to happen? Will the politicians make it? Who have we elected? We have elected them. Why do we blame them? How many of us have gone and asked, walked on the street and says, we want better public transportation in the city? No. The code, the practices, the lessons learned on how to make an environmentally sustainable building is out there. The question is, do you want to do it? No, because we want the profits for the builders. We want the profits for our manufacturing, because they are the ones who are funding their election campaigns. But like you honestly said, it is entirely possible. And who have to ask for it? I have to ask for it. Smita has to ask for it. You have to ask for it. All the people here in this room and who are not in this room have to ask for it. Only then change will happen.
Can I add one point to it? We all seek change. And when we want to make a change, till we make that, we are not feeling satisfied, imagine. But nowadays we get this online Google form, something you fill, and you press a button and you feel, it is done. Nandu madidene. We wash our guilt by doing these things online. But when there is a call to say that we will do a protest here, or we will say our voices being put here, you will only find some gray hair there. This generation needs to wake up and see that what you're doing digitally, fantastic, that works. But what works well is a physical presence. People should see that these many people are being affected. So please make your appearances at the right place and put in your voice. Just by doing something digital, do not wash off your sins. Thank you.
I thank all our participants for their active engagement, and also our resource person for sharing their valuable insights during the question and answer session. To close this enlightening session, I now invite Ms. Rimanka to propose the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon to everyone present. It is my privilege to deliver the vote of thanks for today's enlightening session on the role of urban biodiversity in climate resilience. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our distinguished resource person, Dr. Smita Hegde, whose insights and experience help us understand how urban biodiversity is not just an environmental concern, but also a vital aspect of social well-being and sustainable urban development. Your perspectives have broadened our vision on how we can adapt and thrive amidst the challenges of climate change. I extend my sincere thanks to Sir Mr. Vijay Moras for his contribution in this discussion. I am also grateful to the organizers for arranging this meaningful session on a very pressing issue of our present time. Thanks to all the participants for the enthusiastic participation and thought-provoking questions which enriched this discussion. I thank each one of you in the audience for your attentive presence. It is your engagement that gives purpose and meaning to sessions like this. Let's all resolve towards sustainable development to fight climate change. Thank you all once again.
Thank you, Ms. Rimanka, for so gracefully acknowledging the contributions of our speaker.